Shalom, everyone, and today we're going to discuss the secret of the holiday of Shavuot. Shavuot is one of the three pilgrimage holidays mentioned in the Torah, uh, one of the three high holidays, and you can find it in the book of Exodus 34:22. V'chag Shavuot ta'aseh lecha, and you should have celebrate the holiday of Shavuot Bikurei Ktsir Chitim. From this verse, we learn the two most famous names of Chag Shavuot. One, Chag Shavuot, is basically exactly as it's written in Exodus 34:22. Chag Shavuot Ta'aseh lecha. Shavuot means weeks, because it is celebrating the completion of counting of 7 weeks. One day after 7 weeks are over, the 50th day, the Jubilee, this is when we celebrate Shavuot. 7 weeks from the Exodus, from leaving Egypt, okay, from Passover. Now, the other name, Bikurei Ktsir Chitim, Bikurim, Chag HaBikurim. I don't know how to, it's hard to translate into English. Bikurim means the first. It's coming from the word bechor, firstborn, the first harvest, the first yield of the field after the winter time. They are called bikurim. So the bikurim were brought to the temple to celebrate on the holiday of Shavuot. Winter is over, and now the crops are starting to come to yield, and especially bikurei ktsir chitim, another name, Chag HaKatzir, the holiday of the harvest, Katzir. You can see it also in the second line, because this is the time that the wheat harvest is starting. So as I mentioned in the study for Passover, on the first day of Passover, the morning after the celebration of Passover, we have a custom mentioned in the Torah that the high priest will go out of the temple and have a harvest the first harvest of barley. Okay, but for wheat, this is when the wheat is blooming. So it takes 7 weeks from the blooming time of the wheat till the harvest. So this is the celebration of the wheat harvest also. Okay, so we have already 3 names for the holiday: Shavuot for the 7 weeks, Bikurim for the first crops, Katzir, the holiday of the harvest of the wheat. Okay, if we go now to Leviticus 23, verses 15 till 21, Usfartem lachem mimochorat Shabbat, and you should count from the day after the sabbatical of Passover, from bringing the first harvest of the barley. Sheva Shabbatot mimot tiena, you should count 7 complete weeks. Ad mimochorat Shabbat Shvit, till the next day after the 7th week, you will count 50 days. Tisperu 50 yom, v'ikavtem mincha chadasha l'Hashem, and then you bring a new offering to Hashem. And what do you bring? What kind of a harvest do you bring? 2 breads, chametz, teafena bikurim l'Hashem. They will be brought as chametz. Usually chametz is not allowed in Beit HaMikdash, in the temple. Only, but on Shavuot, they have to be by order chametz. Why? Chametz means, when you study Passover, chametz, the leavened bread, is a symbol of the desire to receive. Okay? On Passover, we suppress it to take over it, and that is why we eat only unleavened bread, and we bring offerings only of unleavened bread. That's on Passover. The 7 weeks after Passover are the 7 weeks of overcoming that selfishness or that negativity, or you call it bad ego, that is symbolized by the word chametz, the leaven. Now that we overcame it, we can temper with this, we can control it, we can kosher it. Now you can bring it as an offering because we had 7 weeks of hard work to basically harness the ego and turn it from a negative bad ego to a positive ego. Now, without ego, you don't exist, because if you don't have an ego, how can you have a goal to become a spiritual person? That's ego. Who are you to become a spiritual person? So not every ego is bad. Bad ego gets you into do bad stuff or into not doing anything. Good ego gets you the motivation to move on and to grow. So ego is not necessarily good, and the story between Passover and Shavuot is the proof. Barley symbolizes the food of the beast. So in Passover, our desires are in a level of the beast, which means untempered and not complicated, not sophisticated. By Shavuot, it's already being elevated, so you can take all those desires, like fear, like anger, like anything that we know as emotions, and find a positive use, which means the whole thing that the Torah is talking about is not about elimination of evil, but transforming the evil into good. That is the difference between Mount Sinai revelation, the Torah, and many other religions and spiritual journeys. Then we go to verse 21. וקראתם בעצם היום הזה מקרא קודש יהיה לכם. It's a מקרא קודש, it's a day to call the holiness in. כל מלאכת עבודה לא תעשו, no work during this time. חוקת עולם, it's a law, it's eternal law. בכל מושבותיכם, wherever you dwell, for your generations. Okay? And we have now another name. The holiday Chag Matan Torah, the holiday of the giving of the Torah. And for that, we have the proof from the book of Exodus, chapter 19, verses 1 to 6. Of course, the whole parasha. From that chapter 19 and on, it's all about Mount Sinai revelation, including the two tablets and whatever. And there it says, בחודש השלישי לצאת בני ישראל מארץ מצרים, on the 3rd month for the exodus of the children of Israel from the land of Egypt, on this day they came to the Sinai desert. And we learned it when we spoke about Rosh Chodesh. On this day, it means on the new moon of Sivan, Gemini. Verse 2, Vayisu meRefidim, and they traveled from Refidim, and they came, Vayavo midbar Sinai, and they came to the Sinai desert, Vayachanu bamidbar, and they camped in the desert, and they camped in the desert, Vayachanu means and they camped, and then Vayichan, Sham Israel neged ha'ar. We already said, Vayachanu bamidbar, and they camped. This is a physical explanation of what happened. They camped in the desert, and then Vayichan Sham Israel. Then it says, and he camped. Israel camped there as a single in front of the mount. And Rashi is asking, what does it mean? Why it's in single? Why the verb is written in a single form? Should be Vayachanu bamidbar, Vayachanu Sham Israel. Should be in the form, in the plural form, as it appears in the beginning of the line. 3rd line, the first word is Vayachanu, plural. The 3rd word in the same line, Vayichan, single. So when it speaks about the nation of Israel, and he camped in front of the mount, Rashi says, why in single? Ke'ish echad belev echad. As one person, one heart, which is basically the key to understand the whole concept of the holiday. Moshe ala ala Elohim, and Moshe Rabbeinu went up to God. Vayikra elav Hashem min ha'ar, and God is calling him from the mount. Le'emor כה תאמר לבית Yaakov, so you would say to the house of Jacob, means the women, ותגד לבני Israel, and you tell the children of Israel, the men, Verse 4, Atem reitem asher asiti lemitzrayim, you've seen what have I done to Egypt. Va'esa etchem al kanfei nesharim. It's a poem, it's really poetry. And I'll carry you on the wings of angels. Ve'avi etchem elai, and I brought you over here to me. Verse 5, Ve'ata, and now, im shamo tishmu bekoli, if you listen to me, ushmartem et briti, and you observe my covenant, ve'item li segula mikol amim, and you will be segula from all the nations. And I already explained for Rosh Chodesh and Parashat Bamidbar, segula, especially for Rosh Chodesh of Sivan, the month of Sivan, segula, translated in by mistake by most translations as a chosen nation. In Hebrew, segula does not mean chosen by any means. Okay? Segula means a mean, a catalyst to prove or to make sure there is a result. So you will be the catalyst for all the nations to bring the result. Why? The verse continues again, chapter 19 in Exodus, verse 5. Kili kol haaretz, says Rav Ashlag, because the whole earth belongs to me. That's what it means, literally in Hebrew. What's the connection between the beginning and the end? You will be the catalyst for all the nations to bring all of them to my covenant, because all the earth, all the nations belong to me, not just you, but you will carry the message. You will carry the legacy. You will make sure that the whole world will be shifting for thousands of years of a process towards recognizing the Mount Sinai revelation, the message that came on Mount Sinai. And we see till today, 33 centuries later and more, that it worked, because this covenant influenced humanity more than any body of knowledge till today. And it's getting stronger and stronger. Vatem, verse 5, Atem tiyu li mamlechet kohanim, you will be a kingdom of kohanim, of priests, vegoy kadosh, a holy nation. Ele advarim asher tedaber bnei Israel. These are the things you're going to speak to the children of Israel. So, what is the message of Mount Sinai? This is the issue. Okay? Then it goes on, it continues in Exodus from verse 10 till verse 11, okay? Where God says, when Moses tells the people about God's words, and verse 8, "Vayanu kol ha'am yachdav ve'amru kol asher diber Hashem naseh." And the whole nation responded as one. Whatever God spoke, we will do. Vayashev Moshe divrei ha'am el Hashem. And Moses brings the words of the nation to the people, to God. Okay, it goes on, and then it continues till verse 11. You should be ready, because in 3 days from today, on the third day, Yered Hashem l'nei kol ha'am, God will come down on the mount in front of the eyes of the whole nation. So that's why it's called the revelation of Mount Sinai, directly from this verse. Okay? So what happened then? So one of the most amazing places in the whole Zohar, you can find it in the Zohar with Hasulam translation, verse 342, and it says, I'll read first the Aramaic, Tana, Amar Rabbi Shimon, כתיב, וידבר אלוהים את כל הדברים האלה. וגומר, וידבר, בגין להכרזה מילים, דתנא, בשעתה דקודשה בריחו יתגלה, ובשרי למללה, עילאין ותתאין התחלחלו, ונפקו נשמתון של ישראל. Translation. We learned, Rabbi Shimon said, it says, and God spoke all of these words to the nation of Israel. It says, and he spoke, he spoke or uttered. It doesn't say he told. Okay, Vaidaber, it's hard to translate in English. Vaidaber means very strong words. Vayomer means softer, speaking softly. Why it is Vaidaber? Because, by the way, in Hebrew, what is called by mistake the Ten Commandments, in Hebrew it's called Vayes Aseret HaDibrot, which means they are coming from Vaidaber, from the source Vaidaber, or which means these are the 10 spoken words, okay, spoken sentences. That's how it speaks, how it says in Hebrew, not commandments. Homishum. Why using the verb dalet bet resh? It's not commandments. Again, the verb dibrot in Hebrew, it's coming from the word vaidaber. God spoke. Why? Ki vaidaber, because vaidaber, the verb vaidaber, hu beharamat kol. The verb vaidaber means raising the voice. Vayomer is with a lower, softer voice. להכריז הדברים, to announce those things. שלמדנו, because we learned. בשעה שהקדוש ברוך הוא נתגלה, when the holy blessed be he, has been revealed, והתחיל לדבר, and he started to speak, העליונים והתחתונים התחלחלו. The upper worlds and the lower worlds started to shake. ויצאו נשמות ישראל. And the souls of the nation of Israel left their bodies, which means almost 3 million people. The experience was so intense, we had an out-of-body experience of almost 3 million people present over there. And in many other places it says also, and whoever was there was also the ones who were not alive at that generation. So all the souls came to participate in that beyond imagination event. Zohito, verse 343, we continue. Vetana, ההוא מילה הווה טס מלעילה לטאטה, ומתגלפה בארבע רוחי עלמא, וסלקה ונחתה, כצלקה השתאבה מטורי דפרסמונה דחיה, והשתאבה בהו תלה דלילה, והסחר בסחרניון דישראל, וטבעת בהו נשמתיון, והסחר מתגלפה באתרי, בלוחי הבנה, וכן כל מילה ומילה. Translation. And we learn, every word that came from above, each one of the words that were engraved on the two tablets was flying from above to below, and it was engraved from 4 corners of the universe. And the word came up and came down. When it came up, it is being filled from the mountains of the pure persimmon, which is considered to be like a very pure essence. Okay? And then it has been filled with that dew of the above. And dew, when we're talking about dew, we're talking about that liquid, that nectar, that is the essence of life. Because when a person receives that energy that is called tal, dew, okay, it heals everything. It heals everything, and it is the essential power of longevity and immunity to any death. So every word has been filled up with that divine nectar. And then the word was flying around each soul of Israel and bringing their souls back. And that word flying around and return, and then it's being engraved in its place on the tablets, the stone tablets. Every word and word of the words of the 2 tablets. If you can imagine something like this. Verse 344. אמר רבי שמעון, כל מילה ומילה הווה מלא בכל עינון טעמין, בכל עינון מילים גזרין, אגרין ואנשים, רזין וסטרין כאסקופה דה, Dehi Malia Mikola. Translation, Rabbi Shimon said, every word was full of all of the explanations and the reasons behind every one of these words pronounced on Mount Sinai, with all those words of decrees, reward, and punishment, secrets and hidden stuff, like a treasure full of everything, which means, and he explains, and בשעה שמילה היא הייתה יוצאת נראית כאחת, when the word came from above, it looks like that word. But as the word will come down and being engraved in its place on the tablets, where you could see, and that word, that's what the people saw, 70 branches coming out of each word. And then 50 crowns minus one on one side, and 50 crowns minus one on the other side. Like a hammer hitting the mount, the stone, and then all of the sparks coming out. As we said, this is like, you can imagine like an animation. So every word coming in the stone, everybody could see, because it says, and the people saw the words, the voices. They could see from every word 70 branches coming out. 70 branches of what? All the rules of cause and effect of our universe. If you do this, that's what happens. And each one of them has 49 branches on this side and 49 branches on that side, which means we could see, if you do this, that's what happens. If you do that, that's what happens. If you have that positive consciousness, that's what happened, all the possibilities. It's like being able to see the programming of the universe, how every action of every human is already being programmed, except for the free will that is given. And they saw how every choice we make, what are the results for every choice that we make. Of course, the moment you see all of that, you say, yes, I do. Of course, I receive, because you have no free will at that moment. However, the nation of Israel could see eye to eye all of those rules, everything, all the rules of the universe at that moment, and they were happy. When you see how everything comes together, that whatever you do, you see that there is a reward and a punishment, which means cause and effect to everything, and everything is working like a huge computer program. Even though you can't see it with the physical eyes, but everybody could see it, because everybody was during out-of-body experience. Okay? So we understand that what happened on Mount Sinai was an amazing shock, which means a whole nation of slaves, that they were in the deepest of the deepest, the bottom of the human ladder, which means they were slaves in a dictatorship like Egypt, which means, if you want to understand, a regular human being who was not part of the ruling class, he was a serf. He was a subject. Okay? He had no voice. He had no say. He had no rights whatsoever. The first nations outside Israel that started to state this issue that a human being has rights, we are talking about more than 2,500 years later, the Magna Carta, which gave the British people a right not to be a citizen and not a subject, which means they had a right for the body, a right for the freedom, and a right for the property. Okay? Here we're talking about 25 centuries earlier. Every human being on Mount Sinai, every one of the Israelites on Mount Sinai, they saw those rules saying that every human being was made, was created in the image of God, and therefore, if we are part of God, we have the right for happiness. What we think today, this is a symbol of humanism. There's a symbol of modern democracies, starting with the French Revolution or before that, the American Revolution and so on. No, all of these people, if we are talking about the Magna Carta, the later on the American Revolution or the French Revolution, all of that evolution that happened in the last millennium, it's all based on Mount Sinai revelation. The difference is that on Mount Sinai, everybody could see that this is as a cosmic rule. It's not a rule made by humans. And because it's not made by humans, no humans can change the rule or give it a different interpretation. That's a very, very important rule. And therefore, when we're talking about the founding fathers of America and the American Constitution, it's also trying to institute that it's coming from the Torah because, you have in the dollar, in God we trust. And it's also the American Constitution, which means this is a cosmic rule. It cannot be challenged by any court or government, any part of the whatever government you have, because it is a cosmic rule. The change in consciousness that happened on Mount Sinai is what basically, as we said before, the message came from that moment on to the whole world. And the message is about one thing. There is a human right for every person for his own happiness. And this right for happiness is given by God, not by people, not by government. So no government, no person has any right to challenge that rule. Okay, this is very important. But the question is like this, so, but in what cost? And that's why it says, do not kill, do not steal, which means that right for happiness cannot be challenged by anyone. And it doesn't matter if that one is a government or an army or whatever, okay? Or even your wife or your husband or your parents or your children, okay? Now humanity, because of the pain it went through in the last millennia, and humanity is trying to go to the extreme, saying that means that I can do whatever I like, but it's against what it says. So humanity is going right now into a huge revolution, very extreme revolution, and it's all starting from that moment in time that is Mount Sinai revelation that is being celebrated every year on the holiday of Shavuot. And that's why it's also called the holiday of real freedom from death. Freedom from death, why? Because we know that freedom from death, meanwhile, nobody can give it to you, only you can give it to yourself. Because a person can have his own attitude towards life, and he has the only right that we have is choosing an attitude. And when you choose an attitude, as it says, Hakol bidei shamayim chutz mirat shamayim, everything depends on heavens except from the awe of heavens, and awe means awareness. When a person is making a move, a decision, what to say, what to think, what to feel, based on the commitment to the awe of heavens, to the awareness of this system that is being introduced on Mount Sinai, then you have free will. Because whatever you think, whatever you feel, is a derivative of the law given on Mount Sinai, which is, again, universal, eternal, cannot be challenged by any human being. When this is the commitment that we have the right of free will. But the moment we are going against the law of Mount Sinai, we are basically captive in our own selfish logic, which is basically contaminated with negativity and selfishness, and therefore it's like going back to the same old thing. So the redemption from slavery, the truly redemption of slavery, is not on Passover, but it is on Shavuot. So let's go to a deeper explanation according to the Arizal, his teachings about Shavuot in the gates of meditation. So in the Arizal's chapter about Shavuot, verse 1, he says, צריך שתזכור כל הדרושים שנתבעו להם בעניין פסח. In order to understand Shavuot, you have to understand it's not a holiday by itself. It's based on everything we studied about Pesach, about Passover, and the counting of the Omer, בעניין ספירת העומר. ובזה תבין מה שנבהר עתה בדרך קצרה. So we'll explain in short. הנה נתבהר לנו, we already explained, כי בזין השבועות מתפשטים המוחים בזעיר אנפין. During the 7 weeks after Passover, because and thanks to the counting of the Omer, and we explained that Sefirat Omer does not mean only counting, but it means Sefirah means illumination. So when we count the illuminations, that's the meaning, Sefirat Omer, we count the illuminations, which means we take accountability to bring in the illuminations of the lights of Zeir Anpin, which are the guarantee and the prerequisite for personal true freedom through 7 aspects in Zeir Anpin, which are Chokhmah, Binah, Chesed, Gvura of that, והחסד והגבורה והתפארת, okay, and the Malchut is included with it, which means we are drawing down special lights, as we said, it's Sefirat HaOmer, we are counting the illuminations of the Omer, and by counting, by mouth, by saying it, we order those lights to come in day by day for 49 days. Okay, and now, because Malchut is there being corrected by our counting, ועתה בחג השבועות, now on the 50th day, which is the holiday of Shavuot, 1 day after the completion of the counting of the Omer, the lights have been expanded, נתפשטו גם בנצח ועוד שבוע. The lights have been expanded into Sefirot, Netzach and Hod, inside Zeir Anpin. And those 2 Sefirot, Netzach and Hod, those are the 2 stone tablets, הם סוד שני לוחות האבנים, שניתנו ביום השבועות. So what the Arizal is starting to explain to us, what's happening beyond the story. So those lights that were given during the 7 weeks, every day a different light is illuminating, and our obligation is to bring those lights to our realm by the counting of the Omer, with the consciousness of bringing this light down. Now, though that light is being revealed into the 2 Sefirot that are called Netzach and Hod of Zeir Anpin. And those manifest as the 2 tablets. As it says, כנזכר בזוהר, as it's being mentioned in the Zohar, the train לוחין הינו נצח והוד. The 2 tablets are נצח and הוד. וכיוון שנתפשטו שם, since those lights have been expanded all the way down to ספירות נצח and הוד, then they prepare the grounds. So the next ספירה after הוד is יסוד. יסוד now can mate, connect, reunite with Sefirat Malchut. Now, and it's called Bechinat Zivug de Gadlut Gamor. This union is a complete union of Gadlut. What does it mean, Gadlut? Gadlut is a term which means in Hebrew greatness, okay? Real, true greatness. And it means in a spiritual level, what is greatness? When a person has the ability to overcome any judgment and to apply loving kindness, chesed, over any judgment and sweeten any judgment, which means what is the definition of immortality? Whereas the Zohar said, when God is telling Adam in the Garden of Eden, do not eat from the tree of knowledge, because on the day you eat from the tree, you will surely die. Adam eats from the tree and he dies at the age of 900 years and 30. Oh, God's day is 1,000 years. He died on the same day. I don't buy it. Nobody can buy it. The Zohar says death started the moment Adam and Eve committed the sin. Why? Death is that state of mind of losing it, losing control, and then fear, anger, rage, depression takes over. Every time we fall from the consciousness of happiness and completion, this is experiencing death. This is tasting from the tree of death. So most people die every day, many, many times. So they are on a path that is ongoing death. That's why they're sour, bitter, negative, pessimist, disbelievers, whatever you call it. And it's not that we are angry about these people. No, we feel sorry for them because they experience death all the time. And I'm talking about they, I'm talking about us. Who does not have a moment here and a moment there of giving up, of upset, of anger, of depression, which means when we have that feeling, that emotion overcoming, and we feel that blindness of depression or hopelessness, okay, that is tasting from the tree of death. So what is greatness? What is gadlut? Gadlut is the ability of a person to, when they feel death crawling and coming into our hearts and minds, and we can draw the same moment the light of chesed, the light of giving, caring, greatness, and apply it to overpower and transform the negativity. And that moment, I turned death into life. And that moment, I experienced life, eternal life, instead of painful death. Okay? And death, we should know, is accumulating. The moment we accumulate enough points of death, we physically die. Okay? So for most people, although they say, even in English, it sounds like this, how old are you? Which means, how many years are you dying? Oh, I am 96. Oh, you're dying for 96 years. Oh, what a pain. Okay? That's the meaning. In Hebrew, you don't say how old are you. Okay? You say the son of how many, the child of how many years are you? Ben kamata. Which means I give you a choice. Are you controlling your life? Are you having, or like people say, how does life treat you? How does life treat you? And the answer is, I don't let life treat me and control me. I have one choice, which is I have to bring in chesed, loving kindness, trust, and faith, and superimpose it on every emotion. By this, I can achieve the sense of true connection. And when you have true connection, this true connection means that you know it cannot be cut off. That means immortality. Nothing can kill you. Okay? And that's the message giving on Mount Sinai. There is an option for every human being to live eternally, which means not to be a victim to all of the day's hurt and the negativity of their everyday life, but to be aware that I have an option not to be a victim for all what life is preparing for me. I don't look at it as being victimized. I'm looking at it as taking the challenge and overcoming, transforming death into life. Okay? That is the message that is hidden, the true message that is hidden in the tablets. And that's why in Parashat Kitisa, it says over there, and that's being really emphasized by the sages. It says over there that when Moses comes with the tablets, it is freedom on the tablets. By mistake, it is being uh, translated into engraved on the tablets. The writing is engraved. But the sages already in the time of the Mishnah said, the mind tells us it's engraved. But if you look at the words, the word is charut, chet reish vav taf. And chet reish vav taf means freedom on the tablets. Engraved is chet reish vav tet. But it doesn't say so. It says chet reish vav taf. Chet reish vav taf, by all means, is freedom. Freedom of what? Freedom from the angel of death. That's what the sages says in the Mishnah, the Talmud, and in the Zohar. So then, when you have that unity between Yesod and Malchut, this is what is called true Emunah, true union between a human being and the upper world. When a person has that special union of the upper world with the lower world, seeing the big picture, then you go out of the box, and it's called Zivug de Gadlut Gamur. It's a union of greatness. Union of greatness means you're invincible. Nothing can bring you down, which means you cannot experience death. You are immune towards death. Death becomes a challenge that you can overcome. Okay? Big, important secret, because this is the message of Shavuot. This is the message of Mount Sinai. And it's not the message of the law. You should do, you should not do. No. That's really nothing. It's like, oh, this law is really upsetting, and it's none of your business. It's like you don't want to follow the laws of the code of the electric system of building a house because it annoys you. What are you talking about? You want to be killed. You want to endanger your family and your guests. Verse 2, in the Arizal. גם יש עניין אחר זולת זה, but there's another thing in it. והוא כי הנה בשבעה שבועות של ספירת העומר, during the 7 weeks of the counting of the Omer, הגדיר זה אנפין גדול גמור. The Arizal is giving us the story behind the scenes. What happened during the 7 weeks of the Sefirat HaOmer? We brought in every day special lights, and those lights have been accumulated. They made the Anpin grow like a little child that grows up till maturity. To the highest level of spiritual maturity. אפילו בגדלות הבית, שהוא בחינת חוכמה בינה עילאין. גדלות הבית means even maturity of the upper levels, the upper possible levels. שם למעלה מישראל סבא ותבונה נקרא גדלות א'. The 2 levels of greatness, this is the uppermost level, which is called the second level of greatness. There are 2 levels of greatness, which every human being must go through in order to manifest his or her greatness that is promised from birth. ונמצא, we found out, כי כבר, so the reality is that Zeranpin Igdil, so during the 7 weeks, Zeranpin grew up through the counting of the Omer, עד שהוא קומת כל אבא ואמא, till it covers the whole width or a height of אבא ואמא, חוכמה עם בינה. ואין בו אלא בחינה גדול, is already that level of greatness is awaiting us. שהם מן חוכמה ובינה שבו ולמטה, שמקום המוחין שלו, אבל בחינת הכתר שבו, but the keter, this חוכמה בינה from the upper three, are very high, but keter is the highest of them all. Keter is still missing. כי הוא נעשה מן אריך אנפין עצמו. כנודע כי אבא ואמא הם בחינת חוכמה בינה דאריך אנפין. ולכן צריך שיעלה עתה זעיר אנפין בחג השבועות. So, now that we're talking about two levels of greatness that are being achieved during Passover, it disappeared. Now through the 7 weeks, it's being achieved. But the highest level of greatness, which is that level is a real, true freedom of any fear and negativity, which means freedom means that nothing can bring us down emotionally. Whatever happens to us, if it's right or not right, justified or not justified, we are not victims of the events or anything that happens. We are always staying united all the way from the uppermost level to the lowest level of reality. In every action, we are in total unity with the light of God, and nothing can disturb that. Right or wrong, it doesn't matter. You know, a lot of people, they think it's a religious, what's the word? It's a religious duty to be upset because of injustice. Okay, and then where does it say in the Torah? It doesn't say you should be upset of anything. Yeah, but they are wrong. Why should their wrong bring you to be wrong? Okay? On the contrary, the only way to fight it is to be greater than it. Okay? So there's no mitzvah, there's no precept, there's no duty to be upset for nothing. Oh, you need to put down your your foot, but it always must be with grace and total trust of the light. Which means if somebody fell, why should I fall after him? You know, if somebody tells you to jump off the roof, you jump off the roof? Of course not. Okay, so that level of total freedom is called the keter, the upper crown, the upper corona. Okay? Only when you achieve that level, you achieve the purpose of the greatness of Zeranpin. Ki zeu tachlit gadlut Zeranpin. That can come in only on the day of Shavuot, in one condition, that we made the connection through the 7 weeks. And then, this is the rule. So Rabbi Nissim Peretz, the great Kabbalist of blessed memory, said, we understand from that there are two explanations we can summarize from the Arizal. One, that the whole purpose of the lights coming on the night of the Seder, and they're leaving the day after, because we know, though all of those lights, except from the Keter, came in on the night of Passover during the Exodus, and then every year, when we make the Seder, we receive those lights, but they disappear the day after. Why? Because the light comes into the vessel on the night of Passover, either during the original Exodus or every year during Passover night. The light comes into the vessel, shines in it, me'ir bo v'yotze, and leaves. Matrat הכניסה והיציאה היא נתינת רשימו בכלי. Why is the light coming in and leave? Because by coming in, the light impresses itself in the vessel, in our consciousness, in our soul. The moment the impression is there and the light is gone, we have kind of a memory with guidelines about who do we want to become. Why? כדי שאחר כך אתה תמשיך את אותה הערה במשך ימי הספירה. So now after you tasted the taste of freedom on the night of Passover, now you can bring that light in through the Sefirat HaOmer, day by day, which means all the light that came in on the night of Passover, left an impression in our soul, and now we are using that impression to bring that light in step by step through the 49 days of the Sephirah. That's one reason. Second reason, during that time, the night of Passover, if somebody remembers, uh, when we spoke about the lights coming in on Passover, we spoke about the Passover plate that had all 10 Sephirot of the tree of life symbolized on it. And we said that the three matzot were Chokhmah, Binah, Da'at. Then came the Zohar, the Beitza, the egg, and the Maror, which are Chesed, Gvura, and Tiferet, and so on, all the way to Malchut, which was the plate itself. The question is, where is Keter? Chokhmah, Binah, Da'at, the three matzot, they're not the highest. The highest is Keter. Where is Keter? Oh, the answer is, during the 7 weeks, Keter did not come in on Passover. Keter did not come in during the 7 weeks. So during the 7 weeks, only Vav Ktsavot de Gazlut, only the vessel of the lights came in. But then on the 7th came in the upper 3 in completion. Okay? So the Keter can come only on Shavuot. So we continue from the Arizal. But this Keter that is being given now to Zeranpin after Zeranpin accomplished all the levels it should go through, which means we are talking about every one of us, his accomplishments during the counting of the Omer. Now, after we achieve that accomplishment, this Keter ineu matchil ikanes bo. That Keter is starting to come into the vessel. When? Bitchilat lei Shavuot, in the beginning of the night of Shavuot. Ve'ino nigmar likanes ad hashmorot haboker. And it takes the whole night to come in till the dawn of the morning of Shavuot. Dawn means it's still the darkest. I think it's 72 minutes before sunrise. It's still very dark outside, but that is the magical moment that the Keter completed to come in. ואחר כך, בתפילת שחרית ומוסף של יום השבועות, and during the morning prayer, shacharit, and musaf, the additional prayer after the Torah reading of Shavuot, as mizdaveg im nukva Rachel, then this Keter unites with Malchut, which is called Rachel, כי בשאר השבתות וימים טובים, like other Shabbatot and holidays, שאז הזמן זיווגם, this is the time that they unite. Keter, every Shabbat and holiday, we have an additional silent prayer, additional Tfilat Shmoneh Esrei after the Torah reading, which is called Musaf, which means extra or additional. And in all of them, in the repetition, we say Keter iknu lecha. They will give you, the angel will give you Keter. That's in most synagogues, except from the real Ashkenazi. They don't say Keter. Ela she'ata ala. Okay, so what's the difference? In every holiday in Shabbat, during Tfilat Musaf, we say Keter because Keter comes in. שאתה עלה עד אריך אנפין מבאשמורת הבוקר, ומה שאין כן בשבתות ויומים טובים. It's different because here, the Keter goes up. It's like so powerful, like in no other days. וזהו עניין מעלת חג השבועות. And that's the special advantage that חג השבועות has over all the other holidays. ולכן הזיווג התחתון נאסר בליל שבועות, כי גם למעלה לא יהיה זיווג עד היום הנזכר. And then Rabbi Zakluri adds, that's why there shouldn't be any union between a husband and wife, which is called the lower union, during the night of Shavuot, which means even if it's like you shouldn't have marital relations during the night of Shavuot. Why? Because in the cosmic world, the union does not exist only till the Musaf, then is the highest level of union. ולא עוד אלא שצריך האדם שלא לישון בלילה הזאת כלל. And more than that, we should not sleep that night at all. ולהיות כל הלילה נאורים, we should be awakened the whole night, and we should be studying and dealing with the Torah the whole night. As it's being, כנזכר באורך בהקדמת ספר הזוהר, as it's being mentioned in length in the introduction to the Zohar of Parashat, in Parashat Emor in the Zohar. We'll read it. ודע, and you should know, כי כל מי שלא יישן בלילה הזאת כלל, whoever is not going to sleep that night at all, which means the night of Shavuot, אפילו רגע אחד, even a moment, ויהיה עוסק בתורה כל הלילה, but let's say I'm awake the whole night, but I'm reading newspapers or stuff like this. No. You should be consciously busy with the Torah the whole night. מובטח לו שישלים שנתו. It is guaranteed that that person will live that year to its completion. Which means, it reminds us, life and death is being decreed finally when we connect to Keter on Yom Kippur. Go back to the lesson of Yom Kippur. And that is in the Tefillah of Ne'ilah, the last Tefillah, the last prayer of Yom Kippur, the fifth prayer of Yom Kippur. Over there, we also reach Keter. So what Arizal is saying over there, it's based on what is written in the Zohar. Rabbi Shimon says that if we did not connect properly to Keter on the fifth prayer of Yom Kippur, Tfilat Ne'ilah, and we don't have enough life to live to the end of the year, we can transform it because we have another access to that Keter on Shavuot. And whoever is going to stay awake the whole night and study Torah, okay, he is guaranteed that he will live that year, for that year, ולא יארע לו שום נזק, and no harm can happen to him on that year. So it's also collateral. Not just that you're not going to die, life insurance, but you're not going to experience any damage. And we know life insurance is death insurance. When somebody dies, then his heirs are going to get some money. Here, it's a real life insurance. You'll never die. Guaranteed. וכמו שאמר רש"י בהקדמת בראשית, and as Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said in the introduction to the Zohar, וזה לשונו, these are his words, דהפוק ההוא שתה בשלום. He will complete that year complete, in peace. עיין שם, read over there, we'll read. ולא עוד, and no more than that, אלא שהוראת חיי אדם בשנה היא תלויה בעניין הזה. The life of a person in that year depends on that, which means we can reconnect to eternal life, freedom from the angel of death, that day of Shavuot. כי אם לא ישן כלל, if a person won't sleep at all, ודאי שלא ימות, it's guaranteed, for sure, for certain, that the person do not die that year. ודי בזה, it's enough. ולכן פשט המנהג הזה בישראל, that's why that custom, it's a minhag, is very prevalent among the nation of Israel. לעסוק בתורה כולל שבועות, to study Torah, to be busy with the Torah the whole night of Shavuot, and not to sleep at all till the morning. אמנם העניין הוא זהו, כי על ידי היותם עוסקים בתורה כל הלילה, by dealing with the Torah the whole night, הם ממשיכים את הכתר הנזכר בזעיר אנפין. What are we doing when we're dealing with the Torah the whole night, when we're busy with the Torah, studying the Torah? We are drawing that keter. What is the keter? The keter is the consciousness of total greatness. And what does mean total greatness? The ability to be above every pain, sorrow, fear, confusion that this world, this physical world, can supply as a challenge, and be able to conquer all of them. That's amazing. It's not just that you're going to live but you're not going to experience death, which means the ability to think bigger, greater, more positive, with certainty and trust and love. That is what we can connect on Shavuot, and that is the essence of the whole Torah, not just on Shavuot, but that is what's given on Mount Sinai. Of course, of that night of Shavuot, that day of Shavuot, that light is being given to us concentrated. And by this we draw the keter, which is Bechinat Dikna the Arichanpin. This is the beard of the upper, the Arichanpin, the long face, which is basically another name for the aspect of Keter, which means when all the light of the endless is coming down, so we can, basically it's an awareness of the truth. What is the awareness of the truth? That everything was created for one purpose, to give us eternal life, so we can acquire that sense of eternity and unconditional love and happiness by ourselves. That is the essence of Mount Sinai revelation. That is the essence of the study of the Torah and the mitzvot. What does it mean? We are basically learning that in order to acquire a consciousness that is immortal. What does it mean, immortal? We can see every pain and sorrow, injustice, or moment of darkness as a challenge to bring us closer to the consciousness of Keter. What is the consciousness of Keter? The original thought of the Creator that permeates every aspect of reality. Whatever happens is there to bring us to that consciousness of greatness, that it's all for the good, it's all in order to give us the ability to have ownership over immortality and true greatness. So what do we do in order to draw that light of Keter down? And so the Arizal is giving, and that's based on the Zohar. וזהו הסדר של המקרא. That's the order of what you should read the night of Shavuot. Okay? It's called Tikkun Leil Shavuot. And so in order to make it easy, you can find in many Judaica stores in every city around the world, it's a special print that is called Tikkun Leil Shavuot, the Tikkun of the night of Shavuot. שתעסוק בו בלילה הזה, today you can even download it from the internet. אוקיי, כדי להמשיך הכתר הנזכר, what should you do? תתחיל מפרשות בראשית, start from the book of Genesis. תקרא פרשות בראשית, you read the beginning of פרשות בראשית, just the first chapter about the creation, and then till the end of the creation of the first week, which is also the beginning of the second chapter. Then skip, אחר כך תדלג, and ותקרא ג' פסוקים אחרונים של בראשית. Then read the last 3 verses of פרשת בראשית. From there and on, you should read 3 first and 3 last psukim, verses of every parasha in the Torah. Okay? And when you come to Parashat Yitro, Mount Sinai Revelation, read the first 3 verses and then read what we just read from chapter 19, verse 1 in Exodus. B'chodesh HaShlishi, read the whole story of the Revelation till the end of the parasha. When you come to Parashat Mishpatim, when שתגיע פרשת משפטים, תקרא 3 פסוקים ראשונים, read the first 3 verses, and then skip to El Moshe Amar Alei El Hashem. And God said to Moses, come up to God, till the end of the parasha. And when you come to Parashat Vayitchanan in Deuteronomy, read the 3 first psukim, skip, read the 10 set of the 10 utterances, till the end of Parashat Shema Yisrael, till Bisharecha, and then skip to the last 3 verses. When you come to Parashat Re'eh, read the first 3 verses, and then read from Shiva Shavuot Yispor Lecha, 7 weeks you count, till the end of the parasha. Okay, it's all there on those special Tikkun and Shavuot, Or if you have Machzor, the prayer book for Shavuot, it should be there too. כשתסיים לקרוא כל הפרשיות על הסדר, when you read all the parashiyot, why you have to skip? Because you can't read the whole Tanakh, all the 24 books of the Bible, on one night. It's impossible. So you have to skip. When you finish this way, the first 5 books of Moses, then the rest of the books, again, the same way, 3 psukim in the beginning, 3 to the end, except for some like the first chapter of Ezekiel, you read the whole chapter. Okay, and this is the order that has to be read on that night. So the first half of the night, that's what we read. We read from the whole 24 books of the Tanakh. אחר כך שאר הלילה בסודות התורה. And then the rest of the night, after midnight, study the secrets of the Torah, which is the Zohar, as much as כפי השגת שכלך, as much as you can understand. ובהגיע אשמורת הבוקר, and when dawn is coming, a little bit before dawn, it's like we're talking about 72 minutes before sunrise, בעת שמשחירים פני הרקיע במזרח, when it's the darkest in the east, אשר נקרא איילת השחר, כנודע, אז צריך שתטבול במקווה. This is the time to go to a mikveh. Okay, what is a mikveh? You know, that's a body of water. It could be a lake, it could be the sea, it could be a spring, or a kosher mikveh built in the city. And when you go and dip in a mikveh, you can also do it in a pool. Then you think, concentrate, meditate, that you are dipping in the upper mikveh, which is the Keter Elyon de Zerampin. This is the Keter, the upper Keter of Zerampin. Because this light, this energy of a mikveh is coming down on this night. And it's called Bonikra Shar Chamishim. This is the same wavelength, which is called the 50th gate, as we explained. ועליו נאמר, וזרקתי עליכם מים טהורים. And about that gate, when we tap into that gate, it says, and I'll throw upon you pure water. This is the verse we repeatedly read on Yom Kippur, okay? Which is that, again, the connection between Yom Kippur and Shavuot. ועל ידי כך אנו מקבלים תוספת קדושה מבחינת הכתר הזה. And by doing that mikveh, we bring down an additional holiness from that keter. And the reason is, טעם הדבר הוא, לפי שאנחנו בלילה הזה עושים שני דברים. During this night we're doing 2 things. האלף הוא להמשיך את כתר עליון הזה, as we said. When we read from the Torah and we study that night, we are drawing in that supreme keter of Zeranpin. Okay? ואחר כך בשמורת הבוקר, and then at dawn, we are becoming, as the Zohar is saying, it's like, you know, in many places, Mount Sinai revelation is called the wedding. The wedding between the nation of Israel and the Holy Blessed Be. It's the wedding between the physical consciousness of a human being that has been sanctified with the godly thinking. That's called the upper supreme keter, which means it is about the creation of that consciousness of eternity, which is the destiny of every human being. Okay? So if we call it a wedding, so the Zohar says it's like the whole night of the study is like we are preparing the garments of the bride. Now, because we prepared the bride's garments, now we become the bride's best men. The matronita, the matron, matronita. Okay, matron is from Aramaic, מטרוניתה, רחל נוקבה דזרנפין, ומוליכין את הכלה הכלולה, but the bride needs to go to the mikveh before she can have a union with the groom. Okay? So we take the bride to the mikveh. The bride dips in, and it happens to be where the bride dips in the mikveh, but it's not just a physical mikveh, it's a supreme mikveh, which is the upper keter. And also we, her best men, we mikveh with her. Where is that coming from? So this is coming from the Zohar, Introduction to the Zohar, Perush Sulam, Rabbi Ashlad's commentary, verse 125 and on. It's a very long article, but this is the main article to study on that night. Rabbi Shimon Hava Yativ Elai Beoraita, Beleila dekala itchaba bebala, דתנינן דכל אינון חבריה דבני חלה דחלה, יצטריכו בהילליה, דקלה הזדמנת למהווה ליומה אחרה גו חופה בבעלה, למהווה עמה כל ההולליה, ולמחדי עמה בתיקונה דהי תרקנת, למלאי באורייתא, מתורה לנביאים מנביאים לכתובים, ובמדרשות דקרי, וברזי דחוכמתה, בגין דאילן אינון תיקונין דילה ותכשיטה, והיא ועולמתה העלת וקיימת על ראשון, והתקנת בו וחדת בו כל ההוללה, וליום האחרה, לעלת לחופה אלא בעדיו, ואילן ניקון בני חופתה, וכיוון דעלת לחופתה קודשה בראשאיל עלי, ומברך לו, ומאתר לו בהתראו, בהתראה דקלה זכה לכל קאום. Translation. That's one of the most important verses from the whole Zohar. Rabbi Shimon was sitting and studying the Torah on that night, in which the Kala, the bride, which is Malchut, is getting united with her husband, getting prepared to be united with her husband. As we learn, all the friends that are the members of the bride's shrine, they needed that night, that before the night, the night before the day of Shavuot. The day of Shavuot is the wedding itself. When we read in the Torah on Shavuot morning, when we read from the Torah, Mount Sinai Revelation, this is the wedding. Okay? Then the wedding is being consummated during Tfilat Musaf. Okay? So, in order for the wedding to happen, the bride has to be prepared. And we are the bride's best men, and we prepare her for the wedding. So we celebrate her with her garments, her corrections, which is she is being prepared with. How do you do that? By being busy with the Torah. With our words, discussions, reading, and so on, we create the garments for the bride so the bride can get into the wedding that she is prepared enough. So by studying the Torah, and then the prophets, and then the writings, and then other stuff, which is the Mishnah, and then Besodei Chokhmah, which is the Zohar and other writings of Kabbalah. So what does it mean? משום שאלו מהתיקונים שלה ותכשיטיה, והיא הקלה ועלמותיה באה ועומדת על השם. Because these are her garments. Our words, our teachings, our study, with them we create the vessel garments, our vessels, for the bride to unite with her husband. So as we study, the bride is standing over our heads, and the bride is being corrected and prepared by our words. And the bride is happy with them all that night. And the morning after, Lemacharat, on the day of Shavuot, she would not get into the wedding unless her best men are with her. And who are they? Those are the friends that are busy with the study of the Torah the whole night. And they are called the members of the chuppah, the members of the chuppah means the canopy of the wedding. But the whole chuppah is a connection to the power of the temple that is coming down during the wedding. וכיוון שבא לחופה, as the bride is coming to the wedding, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy Blessed be the groom, is asking about them. Where? Who prepared your garments? Where are your best men? And he's blessing them. ומעטר אותם, he gives them crowns with the crowns of the bride. בעטרותיה של הכלה, אשרי חלקם. Happy they should be. Which means, the whole day of Shavuot, what the Zohar is continuing to say, Rabbi Ashlag explains, it's like you can translate it as when the time comes for Mashiach to come, it's whoever prepared the corrections of the bride, which means all the people that really, genuinely created the tikkunim, that because of them Mashiach can arrive and humanity can come, humanity can arrive at time of real peace and unity, which is which is the awareness of the upper keter. And that awareness means nobody is a victim. Everybody has the right for happiness, and nobody is supposed to give you that happiness. You have to achieve it by yourself, and it's waiting for you. And it's possible. Okay? When humanity arrives to that place is only thanks to all the work that was done step by step for all the thousands of years of the correction. And those thousands of years, the rules and the steps are condensed to the 49 days of the counting of the Omer and Mount Sinai revelation. So you can see it as this is like in a concentrated formula. Those 7 weeks at Shavuot is like the journey of humanity towards salvation, towards Messianic Age, with Shavuot as a day we can experience a little bit of the taste of Mashiach. So, of course, we can experience it for 1 year, which means an immunity from death. And that's a very powerful thing because every year we have another opportunity to get another vaccination against that. How do I know I got a vaccination? That I don't get down anymore like I used to be. I'm not getting depressed anymore like I used to be. I'm not getting upset or into blame or into victim consciousness like I used to be. I have that expanded consciousness of greatness in which I can look at things from above and say it's all for the good and be aware of it. Okay? And that is the great gift of Shavuot. And that's a great gift of Mount Sinai revelation. That's a great gift for humanity because every year we expand the power of Mount Sinai revelation to more human beings, to more people, to more aspect of the world. And that gets us closer to the Messianic age in which every human being arrives to that consciousness. Okay? So what's the connection between that and cheesecakes? Okay? Or any kind of milk foods, because it's a big tradition that now, because of the dairy farms, it's very much, it's getting a lot of PR during the days before Shavuot. You know, that's why in Israel, everybody buys dairy products to make dairy. And on the night of Shavuot, you have to eat a holiday meal, which means it has to have fish and meat, like every holiday. So when do you eat the milk products? So there are all kinds, I don't want to, but the milk products, because the milk is a symbol of transforming judgment into mercy. How? The whole story, and which is also the completion of the whole counting of the Omer stuff. Okay, how did the story of the Exodus started? The first plague was blood, okay, which is judgment. And we turned that blood into mercy by getting out of Egypt and finally receiving Mount Sinai. Think about it. The mother eats food and turns it into blood. That's how the Kabbalists speak about it. The blood is red. And the blood is also the color, the red blood is also the color of selfishness and the low frequency thinking of slaves, people that everything upsets them or gets them into emotional loss of control. But when a baby is born, the blood of the mother turns into milk, and the color of milk is white, which is the color of loving and sharing, the color of chesed. So that is a symbolic of eating the milk products during the night, during the day of Shavuot, which is the ability to turn blood, judgment, into the motherly love. Uh, and the moment, the trust of a baby that his mother will be there for him is amazing. So by achieving the Keter consciousness is like achieving that baby trust, that trust his mother no matter what, and feels that milk, which means that nourishment from the Almighty that is available on Shavuot like a free buffet. But of course, it's not really free. We have to acquire that. But relatively to the effort, just count the Omer and study the whole night, and you get the heavenly kingdom, the ability to have real, true control. This is amazing. So that's a gift of Shavuot, which is the highest of them all. And that's why the Zohar says, that's why Shavuot is only one day. The other two holidays, Passover is 7 days. Sukkot is 7 days plus one, okay, Simchat Torah. And Shavuot is only one day in Israel. One day. How come? It says it's because it's perfect. So one day is everything. There's no need for more. Thank you, everybody. I hope we all have an amazing Shavuot and we can experience that greatness light of the godly Keter, and we draw that light to our lives in every aspect of them. Thank you so much.